Okie dokie. So back to this political cartoon. So you've got Lady Liberty here, and she's holding back this curtain, and she's showing this scene back here. And like I said, you can see that that there's bad things going on back here, and these people are all black. And so she's trying to show the injustice and the racism and the like lynchings and all the bad things that are happening in the US. And so kind of as a way to say like, hey, President McKinley, maybe you should look over here and fix the problems in your own country before you go after taking over some other country. So this political cartoon would have been a anti-imperialist political cartoon saying that we shouldn't do it. Let's see, moving on. So after the Spanish-American War, Teddy Roosevelt decides, hey, you know what? I think we need to get involved in Panama and Latin America, and here's why. So before the Panama Canal, so we've already talked about canals, right? That those are these like artificial rivers that, so you can put a boat somewhere where there wasn't a river. So in order to get from New York to San Francisco by sea before the Panama Canal, you had to go all the way down here, all the way around the coast of South America, and all the way back up. So if we have the Panama Canal right in here, it's going to cut that time down by more than half. And you got to remember, we're fighting the Spanish-American War, right? So we've got fighting in Cuba over here, and if this was like an actual full map, we'd be in the Philippines right over here. So we signed this treaty with Panama to build this canal. It's going to shorten the sailing time between the east and west coast. We've got the Navy can move between the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean more quickly because they can cut through there, right? And so again, it's going to protect our holdings here in Cuba and in Latin America, and also over here in the Pacific and the Philippines. So Roosevelt issues his Roosevelt Corollary. Never remember how to say that word. I'm going to say corollary. So he issues his Roosevelt Corollary. And so you've got all these Latin American nations that have borrowed money from European countries. And he's afraid that if these Latin American nations, if they don't pay back their loans, that the European nations are going to come in and they're going to take over the Latin American nations. And of course, we didn't want that, right? Over here in the Western Hemisphere, that's like kind of our deal. Like we've got the influence over here. You know, we've gotten Spain out of Cuba now. And so we've got the influence over here. We're like the big dogs in the Western Hemisphere. So Roosevelt reminds countries of the Monroe Doctrine. So remember all the way back to the Monroe Doctrine, where he basically said, stay out of our business and we'll stay out of yours, remember? So he was saying Monroe was saying to the European countries, don't come over here and try to colonize in the Western Hemisphere. And so Roosevelt, long time later, is now reminding European countries of that and saying, you know what? Also, if you don't follow that, we've got the force that we need to back it up. So I like to say that he gave the Monroe Doctrine a little oomph, like a little power, because he basically said, like, we have the police force that we need. We have the Army and the Navy that we need to back up what we're saying. So there was a little bit of a threat behind it, right? So he was warning the European countries to stay out of the US and Latin American affairs. So you can see this picture here. You've got a European nation, and then you've got Teddy Roosevelt here with his cannon pointing down at him saying, nuh-uh, don't come over here. So we call this the Roosevelt Corollary. It's an extension of the Monroe Doctrine, just like adding to it. So we've got the Monroe Doctrine, don't colonize in the Western Hemisphere, and now we're adding the oomph to it. And it says that the U.S. is going to act as this international police force in the Western Hemisphere. His foreign policy was called Big Stick Diplomacy, because he said, speak softly and carry a big stick and you will go far, meaning that you start with negotiations, but if those don't work, then you use your big stick and back it up. And that's standard 14. And now I got to figure out how to pause it again.